You ever have one of those moments where you realize your whole life is about to change, all because someone decided your existence was just a little too inconvenient? Yeah, that happened. Picture this. I'm standing in my driveway, minding my own business, when Karen, the new HOA president, comes marching up like she owns the place. Don't park here anymore. Pack your things and get out. Her voice had this edge, like she'd been rehearsing that line in the mirror all morning, eyes blazing, arms crossed so tight, I thought she'd snap. Neighbors were peeking out from behind curtains, some pretending to water plants, a couple holding up their phones. That's how bored people get in a sleepy lakeside community. They'll risk a pulled muscle just to catch a little drama. But here's the thing. As Karen's finger jabbed at my car, like she could just will it to disappear, I smiled and pulled out my phone, hit record, and let her keep talking. Not to argue, just to end it, you know what I mean? She didn't know it yet, but she'd just triggered the start of something she couldn't control. It started out as an ordinary Tuesday. I'd just come back from a meeting, brain still spinning with building specs and floor plans. My cabin, my little hideaway on Lake Vista, was more than just a roof and four walls. It was my reset button, my retreat, the one thing I had left after losing both my parents so young. The office window overlooked the lake, sun streaming in on my drafting table, sketches spread out everywhere. I was a senior architectural engineer, but out here, I was just Frank Morrison, a guy with a toolbox and a need for peace. But Karen? She stood there like a general on a power trip, black suit, hair so tight it probably hurt, clutching her designer bag as if it held her soul. "I'm the law around here," she barked, waving a fake-looking document in my face. No seals, no signatures, just blurry print and crooked margins. Amateur hour stuff. I'd worked with enough real zoning permits and city paperwork to spot a forgery before the toner was even dry. Still, the neighbors ate it up. Dorothy, who makes the world's best apple pie, stood in her garden gloves, eyebrows nearly in her hairline. James Wilson, across the street, made at least 5 fake trips to his mailbox. Patricia, who never comes out unless there's free cake, suddenly found her porch plants very thirsty. Someone even started live streaming on their phone. Can you believe it? But what really got my attention wasn't the yelling or the official document. It was Karen's BMW parked at the curb. The vanity plate, 7KRNHOA, nagged at my brain like a tune you can't shake. Why did it seem so familiar? And then Karen announced she was calling the police, marching to her car with a flourish that would make a Broadway director proud, digging through her purse for her phone. I kept the camera rolling, because something about this didn't just feel wrong, it felt rehearsed. That night, I sat in my office with the moon bouncing off the lake, searching every local news thread and forum I could find. That license plate finally popped up on a site called HOA Victims Network, posted by a guy in Phoenix, Mike Peterson, telling a horror story about a woman in a black BMW, fake documents, threats, even forcing people to sell their homes for peanuts. His description fit Karen perfectly, right down to her red lipstick and the way she talks like she's handing down the 10 Commandments. The next morning, a so-called violation notice showed up in my mailbox, complete with an HOA letterhead and more typos than a middle school essay. The return address? Some P.O. box that doesn't even exist in this county. Yeah, that was the moment I realized I was in for more than just a cranky neighbor with too much time on her hands. I called up Sarah at the local print shop. She's seen everything. Turns out, Karen had been there 2 weeks earlier, pretending to be my business partner and printing out copies of my old logo designs. The fakes just kept getting better, and now she was stealing my work to make her scams look more legit. That afternoon, I dropped by Dorothy's for coffee. She'd been itching to spill the beans. She scared off half the block already, Dorothy said, voice low, eyes darting around like Karen might burst through the door. Turns out, Karen had threatened the Wilsons with legal action, pressured them until they sold out, and moved to Florida. Cash buyer, closed in 2 weeks, classic shell company move. Something bigger was going on. I called the county HOA office, hoping for some clarity. The clerk on the line confirmed my worst fears. No one's updated the HOA here since 2022. As far as we know, it's dormant. In other words, Karen's authority was as real as her manicure. She was running a con, using people's fear of legal trouble to bully them out of their homes. And just as I started putting the pieces together, my phone rang. Unknown number. Morrison, you're poking a hornet's nest. Click. I looked outside. And there was the BMW, headlights cutting through the dusk. The next day at dawn, my house was surrounded by jackhammers, orange cones, and workers fixing the water line right in front of my garage. Karen stood there in a new power suit, clipboard in hand, grinning like the devil. The contractor handed me paperwork stamped with my own logo from 2 years ago. She paid in cash, said it was an emergency. I pointed out the bogus permit numbers, the fake contact info, the P.O. box again. The contractors started packing up real quick once they realized they'd been played. That's when I really dug in. Talked to James, who finally admitted Karen had threatened him for weeks, and Patricia, who was so rattled by Karen's intimidation tactics, she barely slept. Everyone had been hit with fake notices, each more official-looking than the last, and everyone just caved, hoping it would go away. The kicker? My sister Lisa called from Portland. "Frank, this is going to sound nuts, but I think the same woman targeted my condo last year. Same red lipstick, same clipboard, same threats. Forced her to sell below market, cash buyers swooped in." Lisa still had a recording. I played it, and sure enough, it was Karen's voice, word for word. I reached out to Mike Peterson in Phoenix. "She's part of a group," he said, 5 people minimum. "They look for weak HOAs, set up fake rules, and scare people out. Then their buddies buy the homes cheap and flip them." His PI had tracked them to over 50 cases, millions in damages, lives uprooted, all under the radar. That night, I heard voices outside, Karen and another man by my mailbox, arguing about the Phoenix situation and accelerating the timeline. No more hiding. I called a neighborhood meeting at Dorothy's, set up a war room with Lisa on video, Mike on speakerphone, everyone bringing their own little pieces of the puzzle. Mike laid it out. The real boss was a disbarred lawyer named Michael Richardson, convicted of real estate fraud, now masterminding this property acquisition network. They'd hit over 100 families in a dozen states. Always the same pattern. Scare, harass, fake authority, buy low, sell high, vanish. 40% of the profits to the foot soldiers, the rest to the man at the top. Richardson even supplied them with high-quality forged documents and legal templates. This was organized crime, not suburban squabbling. Dorothy, sharp as ever, suggested the ACLU. They go after systematic housing fraud, and they know how to work with the feds. I compiled every scrap of evidence: audio, video, fakes, financial records, witness statements. We had the makings of a federal case. That's when Karen showed up with 2 big guys in expensive suits. "You're interfering with legitimate business," she sneered, thinking her muscle would scare us off. But her so-called lawyer whispered, "We should move on. This guy's got real evidence. The feds might be onto us." Karen's mask slipped, and she snapped. "I've spent 2 years on this, and I'm not walking away from a 7-figure payday." Oops, should have checked for microphones. Next day, my cell, landline, and internet all died. The same van with giant antennas idled across the street. But Dorothy showed up with her late husband's military satellite phone. Harold used this to fish off the grid. I called the ACLU, got routed to an attorney named Sarah, who patched me straight through to the FBI's Economic Crimes Unit. Agent Barnes listened to everything, and I could hear it in his voice. He'd been waiting for this. 2 hours later, unmarked cars swarmed the van, arrested the techies. FBI raids in Phoenix, Portland, Vegas, computers, fake docs, shell company records, all seized. Karen, hauled off in cuffs, still shouting that I'd ruined everything. "You have no idea what you've done, Morrison," she yelled, as if she hadn't just been caught stealing millions from innocent families. That day, I watched as my neighbors, finally exhaled. Power and phones came back. The construction blockade vanished. Dorothy threw a block party, and for the first time in months, people weren't afraid to come outside. Lisa called in tears. The FBI promised her restitution. Mike's family in Phoenix, same story. I'd never felt relief and vindication like that in my life. 3 months later, I sat in a packed federal courtroom as Karen and her crew were sentenced. 8 years for her, 15 for Richardson, millions in restitution, sweeping new laws across the country to prevent this kind of fraud. The ACLU asked me to speak at homeowner conferences. Me, just an architect who refused to roll over. And yeah, I visited Karen in prison. Curiosity got the best of me. She admitted it started after her divorce. I wanted to feel in control again. I went too far. Didn't make it right, but it explained a lot. So, here I am, sipping coffee on my dock with Dorothy, lake shimmering at sunset. She asks if I regret it, if I wish I'd just kept my head down. Not a chance. Sometimes, standing up for yourself means standing up for everyone. Sometimes, one phone call really can end a reign of terror. So what do you think? Was justice served, or did we just get lucky? Drop your thoughts below. Let's hear your stories, your HOA nightmares, your takes on right and wrong in communities like ours. And hey, if you want more stories about everyday folks taking on the big guys, you know what to do.